Well, we're here in New York City, but the love of the Irish extend beyond South Bend, obviously. And here in New York City, I find that if you're not part of the Notre Dame Club of New York or something like that, you won't find many Irish fans, except I found one. Pete Mulroy is on my line. You are the host of the First and Gold pod. First of all, thanks for joining me for the first time as we talk some Irish football today.
Yeah, you got it, brother. It's funny you say it with with New York. A lot of the Subway alum contingent for the university, it there's a big following in New York, New Jersey. Me in particular living in Staten Island, there is a club of Staten Island. There's a specific New York club. There's an Orange County club. So there's a lot of them that do, even beyond the media. It's the service work that the university does, and that's the big thing. They're giving back to the community and helping, prospective Notre Dame students that want to go to the school, that have gone to the school, and then just really bolstering various communities by helping those in need, whether they have an attachment to the university or not. So it's great.
It is, and hopefully, maybe you and I will get to the Gipper Gala they have here in New York. That sounds pretty cool. We got to look into that. But anyway, you're also part of the Irish Tribune, and here's my first question: why the hate for Marcus Freeman after that first half? He did a great job this whole game, and yet people were calling for his firing. And we're only in the first half of the game against A&M. I don't understand the psychology of any sports fan that says that just a few minutes into the season. What do you think of that? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting, in any sport when there's a first, right? The first game of the season, first play of the season, first quarter of the season. I think overwhelmingly with this fan base, unless I'm totally missing something, there is support behind, Coach Freeman, as there should be, because he lives and breathes Notre Dame. Just from talking to some buddies out there, he's as Notre Dame as they come. Of course, had a very good playing career at Ohio State and played the National Football League. But from a Notre Dame perspective, he's what you want on and off the field. And I think a product, of that play in the first half, when you think about it, it's that environment, right? Fourth largest game in A&M history from a per person, angle in that stadium, which gets loud, as you know. I think that definitely plays a role in that, a part in it. But overall, when you go into a hostile environment like an SEC country and you don't turn the football over, that's great coaching. Yeah, the players got to do it and they have to execute. But when you have a plan like that, and the plan was to communicate, stay calm, stay within yourselves, and play within yourselves. Look, Notre Dame did, and you saw any adjustments that needed to be made from the first half to the second half that were made. And I think it was to execute with that ground game, and you saw how good Notre Dame's defense is. It starts from the top, and the coaching I thought was really good, and it just continues to get better.
Well, as we were texting, by the way, I said, a game like that against USC, they would have won it because I remember they gave up that game in the very last few minutes. And if they had that defense last year, what a difference that season would have made.
Mhm.
But how did he adjust this defense? Let's start there. I mean, Riley Leonard seems like a good pickup, but the defense was a troublesome part last year, wasn't it?
Well, I think overall, I think, if you go back a year just across the board, there had been questions about, the quarterback play from Sam Hartman in big spots. Obviously, the growth of the wide receiver room, and there were, layers of issues. Just outside of having great talent, there were some problems that existed there. From a coaching perspective, obviously, they made those changes. And then just from a production standpoint, but as far as the defense, you saw, I mean, last year's Notre Dame defense was very good, but this is a different animal this year. I mean, and you saw that Saturday night, an elite defense when you hold your opponent to 4 for 13 on third down. Now, Notre Dame offensively has got to be better on third down in their own right. I think they were 2 of 12 or 2 of 13 on third down, but 4 of 13 to the opposition on third down. You stop them twice on fourth down. The defense gave up 100 passing yards to 146 on the ground. So you held an SEC team that came in ranked 20th in the country to less than 250 total yards. And you won the turnover battle, and you forced 2 interceptions with what very well may be the best secondary in America. So yeah, it was last year's defense good? Yes. Were there problems? Sure. Is this defense on a completely different level? I think we learned that pretty quick even with the opening drive for Texas A&M, they were on the move and you held them to three. So little bend but don't break there, force the turnovers that you got, and you give your offense an opportunity to win, which is exactly what happened.
Now, a New Jersey native made the first interception of the season for Notre Dame. What can you tell us about that quarterback there? What a great intel.
Well, look, when you're looking, across the board defensively, if it's someone like a Don Schuler, I thought, outside of even the way Schuler played, I thought, Jordan Botelho, who, was someone who was sort of maligned during the offseason, had a big game. But yeah, when you look at that secondary and you're able to lean on, Schuler, who had a very active high school career out of Irvington, and then you put him in that secondary with regular playing times alongside Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray, Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watts, who was the best defensive player in the country a year ago. Good things are going to happen. And at all three levels, when you're able to have someone like an Adon Schuler, who, let's not forget, is only a sophomore, really good things are going to happen. And you saw not just the interception, but the way he played throughout the game, with a couple of tackles, getting up there, knocking passes down, being very active beyond the line of scrimmage. I think from top to bottom there, that was as complete a defensive effort as you could ask for. And to get it week one on the road with the eyes of the nation on you was pretty special.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was sort of because I was up at 5 in the morning, so I was in and out of resting. But when I saw that last stop, I'm like, oh my God, this is a different Irish team. Like
Yeah.
I noticed a very big difference. And part of this I would say is Freeman's now settled into the coaching role. Remember how he got thrusted in there because Brian Kelly couldn't stand to do one more game, right? That big bowl game, he had to leave before. Don't even get me started about Brian Kelly. It just bothers me. But here he is,
A lot of people feel that way.
3 years in, and I think he's a lot more comfortable than he's been the last couple of years as coach.
Well, you get that year three storyline as Notre Dame fans like to so often do, right? Who the success in year three, for Brian Kelly getting to a national title game, Lou in '88, and Ara and Leahy and all had a good third year, and it's off to a hell of a start for Coach Freeman and company. But again, I think the big thing here when you talk about what Notre Dame wants to do. And they have the same goals as every other major team in the country. Any team that competes for a championship has the same ultimate goal, regardless of sport, regardless of level. But the best thing, the thing I think I appreciate the most from this coaching staff is everything you hear from Coach Freeman, and it starts with him, Al Golden, Mike Denbrock, whoever it might be. Joe Rudolph, the offensive line coach, there's a willingness and a desire and legitimate desire to prioritize the relationships with these student athletes as human beings. And I think that goes a long way. There were moments Saturday night where you had some troublesome snaps early on. There's no panic from Riley Leonard. As much as that's a testament to the kid being in a fifth year, even though he's in a new spot in South Bend, that's coaching. That's getting these young men ready for chaos and for troublesome things that are going to happen throughout a game, because it will. How you respond in many cases, and I think we saw it Saturday, is a testament to, good or bad. In Notre Dame's case, Saturday, it was very good. How you respond based on how you're being coached and how you're being led. So the mission is there week to week. Do your job, hold yourself accountable, communicate, and don't let the moment become too big. And I A's across the board for the Irish in that regard, and it starts at the top.
All right. Speaking of Riley Leonard, I noted, he and Daniel Jones are going to be the two Duke quarterback, esteemed folks impacting my mood on the weekends. Because I mean, look, you got him with the Irish, you got Daniel Jones with the Giants, but Riley Leonard. First of all, Sam Hartman not playing in the ball game heavily bothered me. Did that bother you last year or what?
Look, it's the world we live in, right? He's not the first, he won't be the last. And when you take that from a personal perspective, a career perspective, it's hard, to crush a guy for that when you've got potentially millions on the line. There will be many guys that will play in these bowl games as we've seen, but that seems sort of seems to be the direction. Was it eating away at me? No, it creates opportunity. You're getting a glimpse of the future anyway with most of these bowl games, especially usually on both lines. You see some new guys that might not have gotten a lot of reps as we saw last year, but you knew you were going a new direction this year. It was just a matter of would it be someone like Steve Angeli? Would it be Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr, or would you go to the portal? Ultimately went to the portal, kept those other guys, but Riley Leonard, following 2 off-season surgeries, still wins the job and plays relatively well week 1. I thought that was big.
And Angeli had a great bowl game. I remember that like it was yesterday. But let me say Riley Leonard looks strong, and the quarterback position is such a revered position at Notre Dame. So
Sure.
do you feel like he has some shoes to fill as a transfer, not even just as a freshman? He's a transfer filling in some shoes here, isn't he?
Look, I think you can obviously there's room for growth. 18 of 30 overall. So your completion percentage is down a little bit, less than 160 yards. But there were instances there where that Texas A&M line, I'm sure they're somewhat disappointed with themselves. Going up against that younger Notre Dame O line. But overall, I think a lot of that the opportunity to take some chances down the field as that O line grows and gels together as a cohesive unit of what'll be basically 5. You can rotate in 6 or 7 throughout the game, but they'll be with that regular starting line most of the time. As that continues to gel, the quarterback numbers will improve because you see how physically strong Riley Leonard is, how he does with the rush when they can get him on the move. I mean, he ran the ball 12 times for almost 65 yards. So you have that opportunity. The passing game will be there. And I think that was more of a product of a very fast Texas A&M defense up front. But to have, the veteran leadership of Riley Leonard, who's, I guess the knock on him coming in was the ability or inability, I should say, according to some, of throwing the ball down the field. But I think in week 1, you made the plays that you needed to make, and because your defense was so good, you were able to lean on that run game. They're going to need to throw the ball, and they're going to need to throw the ball down the field. They have the ability to do that. And I just think that mostly will come down to as Leonard continues to get more comfortable with the likes of Bo Collins, who had a very good game. It was good to see Jaden Greathouse healthy. Cooper Flanagan stepped in for Mitch Evans, who wasn't 100%. That's going to come, but I think it will develop as the offensive line, which I thought played pretty well, all things considered, as the O-line continues to develop over time as well.
All right, let's get to know Pete Mulroy. How does a kid from Staten Island start to fall in love with Notre Dame? Tell me your story, Pete.
Listen, it was a way of life. It was a rite of passage in my family. My dad, God rest his soul. We lost him in 2019 to 9/11 related illness. But he was as diehard as they came. My grandfather, his dad was a big fan, and I'm going out to the Louisville game in a couple of weeks, and I'll be out there visiting some family and friends, and I have some stuff I'll obviously be doing for Tribune while I'm out there. But that's more of a family leisure trip for me. It's like my 12th time, I think, going now. Scattered some of my dad's ashes out there in the lake and all that. But it was Saturdays watching Notre Dame in the fall, Sundays watching the Giants in the
And
fall.
we grew up
So,
listening to Don Criqui, right? I love listening to him on Saturdays as well back in the day, too.
yeah, Cricky recently now, and before him, it was the great Tony Roberts. I can still, feel like a kid again anytime I hear an old, Brady Quinn highlight, or even back when I was real young, the Tony Rice or the Timmy Brown highlights from the late '80s, or even the Jerome Bettis radio calls in the '90s and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been a lifelong thing, and it's been nice to you know, uh, being a full-time teacher in New York City, but still having some time around, my daughter's schedule to still sort of have this opportunity to do some stuff for Tribune, which is really nice.
I want to get this part on camera. So, favorite jersey you own, though, because you seem like a lifer for Notre Dame. What's your favorite jersey you got?
I mean, the revolving door of the number threes, but my favorite player of all time is still on staff. It's Ron Powlus. So I had the number 3 jersey growing up. That was the first game I went to in '96. Notre Dame hammered Washington. So I was out there for that, and then I was a big Jabari Holloway fan, number 87, and Shane Walton played on the '02 team. I was a big fan of him, number 42. You get the old Jerome Bettis number 6 and Tony Rice number 9 in there. So there's been a few, but my favorite player to this day was Ron Powlus for sure.
Well, I liked Jeff Samardzija because we play baseball. Also, I
Sure,
love that
yeah.
story as well. And then Tommy Reese. I mean, I was hanging out at the at the Yankee Stadium game back in 2010 with one of Tommy's roommates' fathers. He talked about stories. He gave me some stories at the 50-yard line. How cool was that?
Sure.
Anyway, um, ever been to South Bend? I guess you have been. So tell me about your
Oh.
times and favorite time there.
Well, last year I went out for the Wake game. That was fun. Obviously, this year I said, I mentioned I'm going to be going to the Louisville game. And, we have some friends out there. Your former good friend of ours was former sheriff of St. Joseph County, Joe Nagy. So we've got some good lineage out there. Did an interview a couple of months ago with President Emeritus Father Mulroy, who's become a friend. So I'll visit with him while I'm out there, probably that Friday. But I've seen the '06 UCLA game where Quinn hit Samardzija late to win the game. Just my first game in '96 against Washington. Been out there for a couple losses, but the opening day games are usually pretty fun because you still get the warm weather. You start going into October, November, you can get really, really cold weather out there, unpredictable weather coming off that lake. But there's no place like it.
So have you ever gotten a picture in front of the touchdown Jesus? I mean, that seems like such a
Oh yeah,
lore part of Notre Dame.
the dome, the library, the stadium, everything over at the Goog where they're doing the team workouts and stuff. It's definitely you can feel it when you're on that campus, and it's nice sometimes just to step back and sort of take it in, appreciate it, even beyond football, which is secondary when you're out there.
All right, so you have the passion. Tell me about turning it into writing and actually doing a podcast. How'd that all come about?
Well, I mean, I started my career, it's funny, in media. Um, was working Major League Baseball, doing some editing, on that side every day in the office in Chelsea. And, they were going through some changes, and I kind of thought about, what a next step might be, and education worked out. But I had wanted to go back to school anyway. I said, if I'm going to go back to school, I might as well turn it into a career that I would enjoy. That's been teaching. But I kept the toe in the water of media. I still do some high school and college broadcasting on the side, and I was doing some pro radio. And I took that radio program and just turned it into, my own personal podcast, Sports Today with Peter J. And then we do the Notre Dame centric podcast, First and Gold. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun over the years to do this. And, I have a 2-year-old daughter, so it's not taking it doesn't take any time
Is
away
she a
from
Notre Dame
that.
fan yet, or what? Is she an Irish fan
She's
yet?
got a lot of Notre Dame clothes, and every time she sees Marcus Freeman on the TV, she recognizes, so she knows.
Well, I tell you what, seeing him run out of the tunnel with the team on Saturday night gave me
Yeah,
some buzz,
he
some
was
juice.
jacked up.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody felt that way. All right, they are coming to New York area. We play them. Navy
Yeah,
plays Notre Dame at MetLife, and then the Yankee Stadium game. Are we going to see each other there? Are you going to any of those games?
I'll be at the Navy game in some capacity. Army at Yankee Stadium in November. I'm sort of up in the air with that one, but gun to my head, I'm pretty sure I am going. Navy, yes. But the Yankee Stadium game is in flux right now.
Now you say in some capacity you could be doing it as a press person, as a press credentials, or what do you
Yeah,
think?
right now for Navy, I will be. I did have an allocation of tickets that I jumped on, but that was even before this. So I'll be there, and then we'll do the post game show like we do on X after every game, which did really well last week. A lot of calls, a lot of listeners. People are fired up with this team, and they gave you a reason for that week one because there's been many instances where how many times have you seen Notre Dame lose that game?
All
How many
right,
times have you
right.
read that book before? Ohio State last year would be a perfect example. So to get out of the gates like that, I think there's a renewed, sense of pride here, and faith in this team, and I do truly believe it's because of who the head coach is.
Well, I think so too. All right, 12-team playoff. This is my final point for the day. until we meet again right down the road here. 12-team playoff, it seems like a very viable situation for Notre Dame now, right? What do they have to do to get in that 12-team playoff situation where they're involved in that conversation?
I think when you look at it, right, you knew going in, is a loss a death sentence? No, no, not necessarily, but it hurts. The highest seed Notre Dame can be because they don't have a conference championship is 5. It's all attainable. Now, in the next couple of weeks, and you take it week by week. You don't want to have sort of a lethargic or lazy start this Saturday in the home opener against Northern Illinois. I don't think they will. As a monster favorite, you just got to win games. You get Northern Illinois, then you go on the road again to Purdue. You're back home from Miami, Ohio, and Louisville. And then followed by Stanford in October after the bye. So you got 3 straight home games after a September 14th trip to Purdue. So you'll have an opportunity there. You're going to get a really good Georgia Tech team that's got some speed offensively in Atlanta. Obviously, Navy at MetLife Stadium, then Florida State, who's 0-2 out of the gates
That's
and
unbelievable.
has
And
and
last
has
night's loss was
looked
just
they've
yeah.
looked awful. A Virginia team you're not messing around with. Army's going to be physical, and then you end the season with USC on the road, November 30th, I think that is, and Miller Moss, USC's quarterback, could very well be the best quarterback Notre Dame sees all year.
All right. And one last thing. Do you think there'll be a lot of field stormings this year? When I first saw that in Notre Dame, I was surprised because you never saw that before. But there they were a couple of years ago, storming the field. Are we going to see that this year again in South Bend? Some exciting wins or what?
Listen, you'll see one if they win the whole damn thing. I'll tell you that much. But if you're gonna get one, it would probably be, I don't think it would be the Louisville game unless they won in some sort of dramatic fashion. But look, the bottom line is they win, they're in, and you got 11 of
Right.
these left. The bye week comes at a more opportunistic time than it did a year ago. Remember how just loaded that schedule wound up being with Ohio State coming back from Ireland, then Louisville, then Duke. It was a gauntlet. There's a little more. There's more of a break here when you get the bye October 6th, and then you got it later on after the Navy game. So there's damage to be done here. And again, it's like Coach Freeman says, you just got to go week to week and keep everything in front of you. And this is a team that's got a lot of leadership. It's certainly, new rankings came out today in the AP poll. Notre Dame was 5th. So it's all right in front of you. You went
That
up in one
that
week.
that right in front of you, as Aaron Boone would say. Anyway, love it. Pete, you're also a teacher. Are you teaching the kids about Notre Dame at all and interspersing your curriculum or what?
Well, they'll ask when the kids report to the classroom Thursday for the first time this school year. They'll see the Notre Dame stuff hanging up in the classroom. I had to convince a couple co-teachers to let me do it. But yeah, they'll if they don't, they will. Put it that way.
Where can we follow you on Instagram and X and all that fun stuff?
Sure. Right through. You can follow the podcast at First and Gold Pod at First and Gold Pod. My personal Instagram for the sports the show that I do, Sports Today with Peter J. It's that at Sports Today with Peter J. That's JAY. And then when you jump on X, obviously First and Gold Pod. That's where you can get all the information about what we do at First and Gold and at the Irish Tribune. And obviously, anybody wants day to day, up to the minute information about Notre Dame, www.theirishtribune.com. And they're all across social media.
Pete Mulroy, thanks for joining the One Leg Up Network. We're talking One Leg Up on sports and on Notre Dame today. Thanks for joining.
You got it, brother. Anytime. It was fun.